So we're live.
Not from my end.
It says play.
Okay. Over to you, Abby.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Live and direct, I can hear you.
Great. Good afternoon, and welcome to another session of FMA Hot Seat. Today, I'm doing the introductions. Thank you to everyone who's joined us already. Today we have with us Uduak Udofia, and she would be the mediator who will be on the hot seat today. So I'm going to hand over to you, so you can read her bio, and then we start with the questions. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes. 1 second. Okay. Today we have Uduak Udofia on the hot seat, and I will be reading out her bio. Now, Uduak Udofia is a legal practitioner, ADL specialist, and the founding partner of Lex Laurel Legal Practitioners and Imaxel Resources, a social impact consultant. She's passionate about using her legal and ADL skills to build more peaceful societies and sustainable businesses. She had her LLM with the University of London, where she graduated with merit. Her core specialty is international dispute resolution with sub-specialization in corporate and commercial law. She is the deputy head of the Nigerian Bar Association Women Forum Mentoring Committee. She is a career volunteer mentor on LinkedIn. Uduak is a member of the International Bar Association, Lagos Court of Arbitration, and she's also listed on the Compliance Advisor Board Ombudsman West African and UN Women Nigerian. Host of mediators as a certified mediator from the Lagos Multi-Door Courthouse, where she mediates for the Lagos State Ministry of Justice Citizens. She is the convener of the Women in Mediation Network and the Female Lawyers Network, which are all virtual knowledge fora. She hosts the Let's Talk Mediation with Udi talk show aimed at creating visibility and amplifying the voices of women in mediation and peace building. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Uduak Udofia. Over to you, Abby. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that.
You're on mute, Abby.
Okay, my apologies. Uduak, thank you for making out time to be here with us today. Hi, can you hear me?
Thank you, Abby. Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. It's actually my pleasure to be here. Yeah.
Thank you. So, tell us a bit about your journey into mediation. How did you get into mediation?
Okay, let's say I got into mediation not by, I wouldn't say I got into mediation by design, but neither would I say I got into mediation by default either. Because when I decided to specialize, I actually went in for arbitration. That was my core specialty, But somewhere along the line, I saw that this arbitration looks too much like litigation, which didn't quite appeal to me, being a lawyer with 19 years post-call experience. It gets to a point in your legal career where you begin to pick and choose what you really, really want to do with the rest of your life. So I got to that point. I thought, okay, ADR, let me do arbitration. I got in and announced, so arbitration is private litigation. It didn't really resonate with my person. And then a friend it was actually during an arbitration certification program, just told me, why don't you just try mediation? I said, okay, yeah, I think maybe I should, after all, it's part of ADR. So let me try it. And that's how I decided to get a certification at LMDC. And that's actually where the journey began for me. And it started out as just being a core mediator. And now I'm more into peace building and also empowering women in that space. So that's how it's been for me. From there, I've joined a couple of networks. I'm actually a member of the African Women in Conflict Prevention and Mediation. It's actually a mechanism of the African Union. It's situated under the panel of the WISE. So basically, it's one of the structures they use to push the WPS agenda, that is the Women, Peace and Security agenda. So basically, it's just to build the competencies of women in the mediation space and also those that are in peace building, to give them the required skills, and so that they can be able to, make useful contributions towards the peace and stability of their various countries, and of course maybe sit on mediation panels and all of that. So that's been the journey for me, and it's been an interesting one. And before I knew it, I decided to specialize. I was actually sent out by the FemWise Africa to train as a negotiator also. So I'm also a negotiator. And it's been an interesting journey, honestly. Every day, new opportunities open up. So I decided to put together, this global network of African women in conflict prevention and mediation. That's my own little network, which is in a global space now, because by reason of being part of the FemWise Africa, I got to meet so many other women that are in the mediation space, in the peace building space. So I now thought about it and said, wouldn't it be interesting and exciting to actually have a platform where we share ideas? Most of us, we are already based in different countries in Africa. Some of us are already in the mediation field. Some are just basically in the peace building field. So we share knowledge, and it's been an exciting experience, Abby, I must tell you.
Great, thank you so much. Sounds quite interesting. So you said you've been your post call 19 years. At what point?
Yes, please.
At what point did you feel that need to, do something else?
Okay, for me, I think it came somewhere around 2008, 2009. That's when I decided, you know what, you need to really pick and choose the area of law you want to build on. So that was it for me. But interestingly, that was also the time I was also actively having my babies. So I was doing the master's program, having 2 babies, and also setting up my own private practice. So it was not an easy period, but I had a wonderful support system. And I really would really encourage so many other career women out there. The fact that maybe you're raising a family and your hands are full doesn't mean you should fold your arms and sit down and not build on your career. So that was it for me, yeah.
So you mentioned that you had gone into arbitration. You went into the ADR space and you picked arbitration. The switch from arbitration to mediation for you as a practitioner, if you were to pick one, let's say there were 2 children, if you were to pick one, which would you, which would you pick and why?
I don't have to think twice.
Udi, this is a trick question. Think carefully.
Okay. Okay, Fola, you want to interject?
I said it's a trick question. So think carefully.
It's a tricky one, but for me,
tricky question. Okay.
Yeah, for me, I really don't have to think twice, because from a bio, you heard I'm a social impact consultant too. So for me, it's not just practicing my career, but I look at the impact I'm making in my society, in my environment. So I found out that mediation helped me to achieve that more. So naturally, I just tilted to mediation. And since I embraced it, I were to be asked again and again, I will always go for mediation, negotiation. I mean, that's the one that resonates more with me. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, my environment is really loud, so I'm having to juggle between muting myself so the noise doesn't come across. Okay, so now say that again.
I said that's okay. I can understand, Abby.
Okay, so as a mediator and a social, you said you were social peace
impact.
Impact. And how do you what's the difference between mediation and peacekeeping? Or would you say mediation is a form of peacekeeping?
Of course, they are actually both related. Maybe you could actually say, maybe it is like two sides of the same coin. But peace building is a lot wider. It involves a lot of activities, from preventive diplomacy, which also have been trained in from the FMA Africa, from that to consensus building, do you understand, to peace education. So there is a lot in peace building. While mediation, you could see it as a subset, like a subspecialty of the whole peace building process. Let's assume there's a conflict now, and you would want to deploy some people to go into that environment to, maybe like kind of broker some peace. Certainly you have to send a lot of skilled personnel to the field, to the country, or to wherever you have the conflict or dispute. You will need your mediators, you will need your negotiators, you will need those that have technical capacity. So all of that comes together to, make up what you could call your peace building effort. And most times, even when you have stopped the mediation process, maybe let's assume there was like a formal mediation process going on. You've been able to get to the point where you've been able to come up with, let's say, a peace agreement, and maybe settlements of some sort. The peace building does not stop. It continues even after the mediation space. So that's why I would want to see it more as mediation is like a subspecialty of the peace building process of, peacekeeping. Yeah.
So you consider mediation a part of peacekeeping?
Of course, it's a very integral part, because it is the mediators that help you to broker the peace. But then you might need others to help you keep the peace now that the mediators have brokered for you. Do you understand what I mean?
I never thought of mediation as I never thought of mediation and brokering in the same sentence.
Oh, there's a lot that goes on in that space, Abby, When you know what? For most of us that initially trained like back here, maybe in the various institutions, we are not really exposed to the peacekeeping and the peace building aspects of the peace work. Let's just put it that way. You understand? But once you expand your horizon, you see that there is a lot that mediation has to offer, and there is a lot of roles that a mediator can play. You understand? You just have to keep building on the skills. So you wouldn't just stop with the skills you acquired as a mediator and you feel that's all. No, the sky is so wide out there. And it's just for you to allow yourself to, build on your skills, spread out your wings and fly. You understand? Mediation is interesting, it's exciting. You could sit down and you can say it, Abby, I'm sure. You've been in the space, so you know, yeah.
Yeah. So tell us, in your journey towards being a mediator, what are some of the challenges you have faced or are currently facing as a mediator in this climb?
Okay. Yeah, I've faced a couple of them, and it's not as if they always would go away, but every situation presents you an opportunity to overcome whatsoever the obstacle is and learn, maybe see it as a learning curve. For me, I think one of the first things I noticed was that some people have a kind of pushback, maybe because of the patriarchy that we have prevalent in this side of the country or world, a lot of men would come in and like, why is it a woman that is going to mediate this matter? As if the brain and the skills could tell apart in terms of gender. Do you understand? So sometimes you just have to overcome that first barrier and obstacle by building your competence, establishing the fact that you know your onions, basically, and getting them to trust your person, because if they don't trust your person, you can't even, no matter the expertise that you have, you cannot help them. You cannot sit there conveniently and do what you're supposed to do. So there's a lot of emotional intelligence that comes in there, understanding the culture, you know, the little here and there, the nuances here and there, just to let them feel comfortable enough to you know, to allow you, let's put it that way, in quotes, you know, to sit there and help them to actually resolve their matter. So that's, for me, that's one of the things you need to overcome. Maybe as a female, I'm talking from my own experience, mediating, you know, in this climate. And it's very real. I've come to see it's not just me. For some people, you also have the language barrier at times, because sometimes some of the people that come before you, they'll prefer maybe to speak in a particular dialect, and maybe if you are not that very fluent, it could present like a kind of barrier. So you have to be able to like tell them, okay, I might not understand everything, but at least I could get an interpreter that could help to, you know, make the process to be as smooth as possible. So there are a couple of things like that, you know, that I have experienced personally, yeah, in my work in mediating in this point.
Okay, thank you so much, Uduak. Now, for every time we have this session, there's always something, there's always a theme that just subconsciously pops up, and then we now try to
Okay.
build a narrative around it. And you just said some, yeah. So you just said something now that probably not averted my mind to on some of the contemporary issues surrounding mediation. And now you mentioned gender. So,
Yeah.
how important is gender in the scheme of things, especially from the angle of being a mediator? Is gender really, really important in the scheme of things as far as mediation is concerned? I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Maybe let me just give you a bit of more context to it.
Okay.
Where as a female mediator, the
Mm.
parties are male. Do you think by virtue of being a female, it might one way or the other affect the scheme of things?
Okay, for me, let me put it this way. I always like to go to the drawing board. First of all, if you as a mediator, you've done your groundwork very well. Once you know you're going to be sitting to mediate a particular matter, you're supposed to have done some sort of conflict analysis. Do you understand? You should be able to know who are the parties going to be that are going to be coming before you. So in that process of preparing for the matter you are going to be sitting in or over as a mediator, you should be able to have some insight into, you know, the idiosyncrasies of the people that you are going to be helping to you know, settle their matter. So it is only wise if you know they are so dogmatic, and I mean you don't expect to change them overnight. So sometimes it's actually safer, you know, to have a co-mediator with you that is a male, just to give them that psychological comfort. Do you understand? But I can assure you from experience, I've come to see that once they, at least they've had that psychological comfort of having a co-male mediator sitting with you, but by the time you begin to, you know, go through the process and you're able to establish your competence, honestly, most times they'll not even remember who is helping them solve the problem, because for most of them, before they come to the mediation table, they're already coming with a mindset that they want a solution. Do you understand? So it's good to use, like I was saying, the emotional intelligence thing first of all. You would have done your homework, know what to do, know the strategy you want to apply in even any given mediation, you know, situation that you have to sit in. For me, that's what I've used sometimes, and it has actually worked. Do you understand? It's worked for me. I know I've talked to a couple of my colleagues. They've also tried it. It has worked. And I mean, one can only keep getting more and more creative, you know, each time. The idea is you want to do your work and you want to do your work well. So whatsoever you need to do within what is acceptable to get your job done, then you need to do it. Yeah.
So within the framework of what you just explained now, and without breaching
Yeah.
confidentiality, does any case come to mind? And that
Of
has to do with
course.
probably you being a mediator, yeah, without you being a mediator, and the fact that you were a female mediator, the fact that you're a female mediator, and the other party was kind of not happy about. I don't know. I think you understand what I'm trying to say. As in within the
I
framework of,
understand.
yeah, so I don't know whether any session comes to mind. So
I have a couple of sessions. Yes, but okay, I'll just share without breaching the confidentiality rule. Yes, I've had one that had to do with, it was a family matter, and then of course you know how it is. They had a lot of coloring. There was this coloring of a title to property. There was a bit of property issue interwoven into it, and naturally they would have preferred, to maybe have a male mediator, but that was the case I was assigned. And I also had the language barrier thing too, because not everybody could speak English. In fact, one of the interesting things that I've learned, I've learned to mediate in pidgin English. Yes, so somebody told me this year, you do it so well. I said, I had to learn, because if you need to do your job, you need to equip yourself. So what happened in that space was at a point we had to bring in like an expert, like an octogenarian, you understand, that had to come and establish what partitioning principle they had used before. And I was, able to tap into the culture of the people. The fact that maybe I had the language barrier notwithstanding, to still get the octogenarian to come and to be comfortable enough to accept my person. And in fact, that would just change the dynamics of everything, because by the time the guy just came, it was more like, this is what Baba is saying, you understand? And people, they stopped arguing. They said, okay, yes, we'll go with what he has said. Yes, that is what was actually agreed before. And I was like, wow, number one, if I didn't overcome that initial barrier of sitting alone as a female mediator, I would not even have been able, to bring in my expertise and, my knowledge to help these people resolve this matter. This is a matter that had gone on for years. And we're able to just resolve it in, I think, 2 sessions. It was so beautiful to see a family just come back together, and that rift was no more there. So I mean, yes, the barriers are real. You can't deny it. Be wise, and your strategy that you want to use to just overcome it, just to get your job done. And I've come to see some people will now come and say, no, I want this mediator. And I'll like, sometimes because I volunteer for CMC, you can't just come and pick and choose your mediator at will. But some, maybe because of the past experience they've had, will like say, okay, is this mediator I want? And sometimes I'll remember how they initially resisted my person. So now this is the mediator you now want, because you've learned to look beyond the gender, level, to look at the competence and the expertise the person brings to the table.
Okay. Please feel free to drop your question, feedback, or comment. And if you need to ask our guest on the hot seat, please indicate by raising your virtual hand. Now, do you have an area of specialization in mediation?
Yeah.
Okay, what area is that?
I mentioned I've been trained as a negotiator. I also have competence in the area of process design. And of course, with my legal skills, I'm also very excellent in drafting. So, there are some mediators that even though they have all the competence, I think maybe I should just backtrack a bit. Honestly, whatever you bring into mediation is not lost. That's one thing people need to understand. All your expertise, the trainings you've had before, because I've had so many people come and ask me, is mediation only for lawyers? I said, no, anybody can be a mediator. Just get trained and acquire the skills and begin to build on your expertise. But I've also come to see, as a lawyer that is also a mediator, I tend to be able to work more with helping them to build frameworks. Maybe like the peace and security framework that we recently sat and designed to present under the project the UN Women sponsored and the UK government. So we sat together. We had a consultative forum in all the I think almost all the political zones in Nigeria. And we mapped the competencies of women with mediation skills. So there and then, strictly speaking, it wasn't really so much of my mediation skills I had to use, and I had to fall back on my legal skills, So the drafting part of it, and of course the presentation of whatsoever we had put together as a group, I was able to do it seamlessly, and you understand, to present it to at the national level because of my legal background. So that is where I find myself building my competency. And presently, I'm still building on it even more because I'm about to go for a second master's in that area still. So it's exciting, and I think it's limitless. Whatever you bring into mediation is not lost, and mediation is so wide. It's not just civil mediation you can do. Yeah.
It's funny. So many issues have just come into mind now, and it's something I've actually never averted my mind to: drafting in mediation. Now, of course, we know lawyers and non-lawyers can be mediators now, but essentially when it comes to drafting, lawyers, by virtue of their training, always seem to have an upper hand. So my question now is this: so there might be a tendency that after a successful mediation session, the intendment of that session in terms of what the parties want and don't want might not necessarily be captured well in the terms of settlement. I know that has happened now.
Happens.
It happens. And it's funny because I never actually averted my mind to this up until you just mentioned drafting. So within the framework of being a mediator, how important is drafting? And putting into cognizance that some of us have been trained in the art of drafting, while some haven't been trained in the art of drafting. Do you think do you consider it a problem in mediation when the mediator cannot properly couch the true intendment of what the parties want in the settlement?
Okay, Fola, if you ask me, honestly, I don't see it as a problem. Rather, I see it as an opportunity to build one's expertise. Do you understand? That's what I choose to see it as. Because honestly, you could do a fantastic work. And you know how it is in a mediation session, especially if you've had a long one. You'll be mentally drained, sometimes emotionally drained. Do you understand? But maybe because you've learned to build your stamina. By the time you're done, if you've not been doing your checking very well to be sure you have, as maybe the session was progressing, that you were capturing the salient pockets of agreement that was being reached. Like you said, you could lose some things. So what I would always advise, if you know you're sitting as a mediator and maybe you really don't have those competencies in that area, it's not like it's something that cannot be redeemable. Sometimes you might just have to get somebody that's very good in capturing something. You understand, to tell the person, please note this. And when you check, as you do your checking, you get the person to note it. And then most times I'll advise, if they're very complicated issues that have been resolved, don't also be in a hurry to quickly bring forth, document everything there and then and ask the parties, sign. No. In fact, recently, let me just interject a bit. I've had like 2 experiences that parties, we got to a point and there was a stalemate, and I now told the parties, you know what, let's take a break. So maybe let's just end the session for today. And honestly, they went outside, had a chat, settled by themselves, then came back to me and said, Madam Mediator, we are ready, we have settled. I said, really? For real? I laughed in my mind because I knew the process. They don't just want to walk away and say as if they've not gained anything out of it. And at that point, it was very easy for me to document it, because initially I had like, okay, I think you all need to take a break from now. And maybe some that are not that easy, maybe some points or aspects of the dispute must have been, you have reached some pockets of agreement, and on some others that, of course, there are some things you can't negotiate. So those red lines, they'll say, no, this one. So you leave them and you not keep hammering on that. So sometimes if you're skillful, you move to other things. And by the time they've come to see the common issue that they felt was non-negotiable. Okay, so back to your question. Someone that sits as a mediator may not have the competencies to do the drafting. They can get another person. Maybe somebody else was shadowing them. That's why it's always good to have a whole mediation team. At least there should be someone that is good enough on your team. Your team should be robust enough to have somebody with specialty. So it boils down to the fact that mediation is wide. You get to pick and choose. Some people are good with process design. They'll just design the whole process for you. Some people are just good with sitting down with the parties to do the actual mediation. Do you understand? Some people are actually very good with building, constituencies and getting people to come together to agree on certain things and then bringing them to the table to present whatsoever they want to add to the process. So that's it, Fola. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have. Mr. Mobi, if I could actually bet $1 for every time I think in my mind when I raise a particular issue, that Mr. Mobi is going to ask a question. This has happened 3 times now, Mr. I knew one way or the other you're going to raise your hand, but before I take it, please, I just need to get something to across to Uduak. Now, why I ask this question is this, because it's no longer a question of if. It's more or less a question of when mediation will become the most preferred means of dispute resolution. And I think as mediators and even as end users, we should start preparing ourselves mentally for whatever loopholes that may come. And the issue of drafting, for me, I think should be one of them. Because you see, if at some point in time, we say mediation is party driven, and parties come for mediation without their lawyers, and the mediator too is also, who is not a lawyer, is also present. Then the 3 of them agree on the terms of settlement. One way or the other, a smart lawyer can actually infer or make some kind of deduction into some certain things in an agreement. So now this now brings back this question that is neither here nor there, about mediation being the sole prerogative or the purview of just lawyers alone and not non-lawyers. So do you think that mediation should, as mediation, should only be handled by lawyers? Or do you think that we should still continue to have an infusion of lawyers and non-lawyers? They will now take Mr. Mobi's question.
Of course, the field is wide. Lawyers alone, I mean, in as much as no, we don't. But we are so endowed that we have a lot to offer to mediation. Do you understand me? That's the truth. You can't take it away from us. But the fact is that there are certain other expertise that is needed sometimes along this process of mediation that we will need to bring others in. For instance, I actually had a personal injury matter that had a bit of labor law, component in it that I handled once. And they brought me a medical report in the middle of mediation. My brother, I could not interpret it. I just had to take an adjournment. I said, you know what? So because this just came up, can we take another date? And they said, yes, fine. They were happy. Immediately, I had to call my friend as a consultant medical physician. I said, I beg, what is the meaning of this term? Do you understand? Because if I didn't understand what the report was saying, I cannot help the parties to settle. So, I mean, I wouldn't have deceived myself there to think I have all I need to settle that matter. I had to tap into another person's expertise to be able to help the parties at the mediation table. So we need it. I mean, you won't expect me now to go and start reading medicine. I mean, that's not even what I'm caught up for. But we can let the people with some of this expertise also be on maybe the panels and the rosters, mediation rosters that we have, so that they can also bring in their expertise, So I think we should allow, I mean, everybody should come into the field, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Mobi, thank you so much. Can we please take your question or feedback or comment?
All right. Thank you very much, Fola. Mrs. Udofia, good to see you.
Thank you, sir.
Good. Just have 2 questions. One.
Okay.
Dealing with cultural issues. For instance, you have traditional men in a room, in a mediation room. Have you had a situation like that where you have to do with red-capped or white-capped chiefs? How did you manage that?
Yes.
How did you manage that as a woman? Secondly, when is it proper? Okay, let me even ask it directly. Is it proper? Is it not a breach of confidentiality to record mediation practice in any form or manner, whether discreetly or openly, by a mediator? What are your thoughts on that? Thank you very much.
Okay, sir. All right. So I'll take the issue on cultural issues first. Yeah, I've had that experience. And number one thing I've come to see, you have to understand your cultural context. If you want to do well as a mediator, you can't take it away. You just cannot wish it away. So immediately they came in, of course, you have to acknowledge them, greet them in their proper titles. You also ask how they wish to be addressed. Do you understand? And I can remember very well, it was a tense one. And you know how it is that one party will come with maybe 2-3 other people and the other party is just sitting alone. You know how it is. So there's already power imbalance on the table in the house. So first of all, you have to learn as maybe a mediator. That's where you have those soft skills. You have to bring it into diffuse it a bit. Number one, once the chief feels acknowledged and respected, you understand, he feels, okay, I'm here. And you make him understand, sir. Funny enough, he was not a direct party to the matter, but he came because he had interest in the matter. Do you understand? So that was how it was. And of course, I was able to, sometimes you just have to massage their ego a bit. But at the end of the day, I wasn't losing sight of the fact that he's really not a party to this dispute. But just that the other party accepted it to be on the table. Okay, fine. So I had to, there's some soft skills I used to disarm the person such that in as much as he felt acknowledged, he did not have a voice that outweighed the voice of the complainant. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say. So for me, that's what worked for me in that particular scenario. But of course, I know there are some that will outrightly say they don't want to sit with a female mediator to do their matter. And at that point, it's just sad because you've just thrown away expertise on the, flimsy excuse of gender. But if it is possible to have a male co-mediator, like we've had to do it before, sitting, it helps also. So for me, that's what I use, and it worked. And I mean, at the end of the day, once in a while, you make the chief feel acknowledged. Okay, what do you think? Okay, these are your concerns. You don't want your maybe nephew or niece to be cheated, or I think it was a nephew, yeah, to be cheated or something. Okay, don't worry. At the caucus session, that's one thing that I really used to that helped me. There's what we call caucusing in mediation. At the caucusing stage, I had to make him realize you are here to make this guy get a mediated settlement to this matter. Please don't complicate his issues, because at a point it kept flaring up. So I made him understand, if you keep doing this, you will lose sight of the issues and will not be able to get anything feasible out of this process. At the end of the day, he was very happy. If I came to the barrister, Madam Mediator, you did very well. You did very well, thank you. So that is what I use, a lot of emotional intelligence, acknowledgement, and then of course a lot of soft skills to comes into play. And then of course you acknowledge their office, make them feel they are the custodian of culture and everything. And they, in fact, in an appropriate setting, they should have been the ones sitting in that space to do that job that you're doing, So that's what I use. And on confidentiality issue, honestly, anybody that breaches this one, I don't know what to say, is a no-no. It's a no-no. You are not supposed to record any mediation setting. So most times you start out your mediation sessions by stating all of this out in your ground rules. And ideally, you're supposed to sign your confidentiality agreement, an agreement to mediate, before you even get into the process, So you restate it at the ground rule. Even when you're caucusing, you're restating it. So if at any point, any party has been found to be in breach of that principle, and a lot of them are coming to mediation because they want a solution. So very few say that somebody actually recorded and videoed it. So one thing I do, once you come in, you say, okay, bring out your phones, please turn it off. So you actually turn it off, or you put it on silent. And I actually see that it's on. And I start by example, I do mine first. so that we are all on the same page. And I let them know that if they breach it, then the whole process, we've not gotten anything out of it. So most times, from my experience, I've not had anybody breach it. Though, of course, some of them will go and say some things outside and they'll come back and say, Madam Mediator, you said we should not talk about it. So you caution the other party and let the party know the impact of what they're doing, how it can, affect them negatively. Well, you see, it's as far as you have human beings, some people you can't just control what they choose to do and the reasons for which they choose to do what they are doing. But it's just good for you to keep stressing it each time. Yeah, in a session, yes.
Okay, I have a question. Thank you so much for this, Uduak. I have a question. I'm going to take us back. Okay. So your question, you made a statement about the gender. Now, for me, I've never experienced that. It happened, and I have just never, I've never taken cognizance. Because for me, if you have someone co-mediate, or you call someone to, for lack of a better word now, for there to be a balance, or to, I didn't even understand what I heard what you said, but I have a hard time grasping it. Whether I'm female or I'm male is really a non-issue, because if you're getting on a flight, are you going to be checking that your pilot is male or female? No. I personally believe as a mediator, I'm the captain of that process. I'm the one who's in charge. Now, if someone comes across and says, or I get the vibes, in my language, they say it's the person that looks at the wife that knows that the eyes of the wife, that knows that the wife is crying. I don't know how
Abby, even with the way you are rolling your eyes right now, if you get into a session and say something, everybody will keep quiet.
I don't even know
I can feel that energy from here, Abby. Oh yeah,
for me, I'm thinking in my mind, you have a problem. I help you solve your problem. That's what's important. So I mean, Bola, I know you know where this is coming from, Bola. So I've never experienced it all. And
I don't know.
It
happens. It happens.
I wouldn't call someone to co-mediate. So because the message, in my opinion, the message I'm passing is I don't have the ability. This is 2021. If I call someone to co-mediate, that diminishes my capacity, in my opinion. I mean,
no, if you listen very well, actually, Abby.
Yes.
If you listen very well, I tell you what we do actually, honestly, or what happened in that scenario was this. The person sat in, but the person sat in practically like a figurehead. I still did the mediation. So I just said that the person needed to sit in for the other person's psychological comfort. Yeah, I still mediated.
Okay, I mean, if you say so, but for me, I think that's actually something that it's a key issue. Especially, I mean, I remember it's a key issue because, I mean, for me, I'm female. So I remember I was in court one time and a judge asked me, and I think it was after the Supreme Court, what's the word now? There was a judgment that says for us not to bear Mr. or Mrs. or something, or whether it was Mr. or Miss. Okay. I think something happened that the judge, he said, oh, Miss or Mrs. And I told him, I said, my lord, whether, that for me is irrelevant. My capacity as a lawyer is what is relevant here. Yeah, or something along those lines. I mean, and we had a whole conversation about it. So this issue of, I mean, I didn't understand it, but you said it was for the psychological
psychological part, for the parties, and at the end of the day, they knew who mediated their matter. I mean, who sat as their mediator, So what I'm trying to say, basically, a mediator is supposed to be creative. So for me, if you ask me, I just saw it as one of the ways of being creative. That's the truth. I've mediated severally with an interpreter before. Yes, it was a creative option because I've had to mediate, and honestly, they chose to use dialect, which I could not speak fluently. And initially, I was like, okay, I'll get up. I don't want. I'm sorry, but
totally understandable.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, guess what? We got an interpreter. The person was done. I mean, we finished the mediation. So did you see the mischief there?
But you know,
perhaps they just didn't want me to mediate. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I understand that, and I've experienced it in court, you know, when my court going days. But now I have a question with regards to the mediator, the interpreter. Now, because of the delicate nature of communication, yes. How? Before I even ask that question, did you get the interpreter to sign a mediation, an agreement to mediate, or confidentiality agreement?
Normally, what we do, the person that interpreted actually is a part of the mediation center. So the person knows very well the confidentiality, principle that binds us. After all, it's the person that is interpreting to them. This is what you're saying. This is what regulates this process. So the person knows very well. It's not like you're bringing somebody out of the blues. No. It's somebody that is, at least, even though the person is not a mediator, but is an assistant normally in the mediation process and understands the principles that that guides mediation. So that's why it was a bit easy for me. But normally, if you ask me, I really wouldn't want.
You're frozen, or is it me? Fola, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. I think she's frozen.
Okay, so I think that it's from her end. Yeah.
I think it's frozen. I think this actually raises a lot of questions, more questions than answers, and three things that we might need to probably expand upon at the next session might be the issue of gender in mediation, the issue of drafting in mediation, and even the concept of justice. Because I'm thinking to myself, when you are bringing
the concept of what?
The issue of justice in mediation, because I'm just trying to wrap something around my head. Why do I need to bring an interpreter into a mediation session when I might as well just get somebody that understands the language? Because for me, I'm thinking, I'm from the top of my head.
That's the question I was going to ask her.
Yeah,
because of the delicate nature of communication. Even
communication
as we're talking now, it's possible for us not to, understand what we're saying.
Yeah.
Which is why we use reframing, and I think she's back.
Yeah, communication and even confidentiality.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because those are my
so for me, I'm thinking that interpreter, right?
Yes.
There might be, it might just be one phrase. Why use an interpreter?
But the question, let's even go back to the root of it. Is it even ethical to have an interpreter in mediation? Let's start with that, Uduak. Is it ethical as well to have I have an interpreter in mediation?
Without an agreement of confidentiality being signed.
Yeah, because the question is, will an interpreter sign agreement of? Yeah, over to you, Doc. Yeah, over to you.
Okay, for me, like I've already mentioned, most times, if I'm faced with that scenario, the first thing is always to tell them, I'm sorry, I can't do this matter for you because of the language barrier. I say that upfront. So often it is the parties that say, no, madam, you can go on. We need you to go on. Don't worry. That's why some of them will tell you, oh, they can speak pidgin English, the special English. So that's how I started learning how to mediate with the special English. Then some might still say, oh, I cannot do that one very well. Do you understand? And some might now say, okay, can you get someone?
She's frozen again. I can't hear you.
So for me, forms. Okay, are you hearing me now, Abby?
Yes.
Okay. So I was saying that for some centers that have maybe like a standard form, they would actually have a place for like a witness, maybe / interpreter. So there's normally like clause provided for the envisage that there would be some kind of language barrier. So first of choose to want to go to an interpreter to do the matter, there's always a space for that person to sign and append the signature to show that it's been interpreted to them and they understand and they have chosen. Do you understand? Remember that mediation is supposed to be actually party driven. So if the parties choose that option, as a mediator, if you are sure that at least the basic principles have not been derogated from, I think you can go ahead and just do the matter to the best of your ability.
Okay, let me stop you right there before you go further. So when you do this, if the parties say, oh, Madam Mediator, you've said, I can't do this. I know there's a language barrier. So the parties now tell you, oh, Madam Mediator, please go on. You get an interpreter. Now, what happens if at that point in time, they are all, I mean, everybody's jolly and then tomorrow they come back and say, oh, this isn't what we meant. This isn't exactly, they come back and do a 360 and say,
derogate from.
Yes. So how would you handle that?
So that's why you get the person to append the signature and to actually reflect that this mediation was done through with the aid of an interpreter, being the choice of the parties, not your own choice. Do you understand?
Yes, but I'm still struggling with so now I'm thinking of a language, Tagalog. Let's say they were speaking Tagalog, right?
Okay.
I'm just trying to wrap my mind around the urgency of the matter that the mediator had to get an interpreter. Because really, even as we're speaking English, there's miscommunication. So now talk less of a language that has its own nuances, that has its own dynamics, that has a totally separate culture and background. Because there's some things you can say in even tonnage in a language makes a difference in what's going to, in the message it's passing. So I'm just trying to understand how, what was the urgent nature of this matter?
Okay, for me, one of the times I've had to use an interpreter personally from my personal experience actually was when, remember the one I said there was a matter that I had to do with like a family matter, a bit of title to land issue. So when they brought the octogenarian, you can't expect the Baba to come and be speaking Oyibo for you now. It's not, even if he can speak, most times they'll choose to speak their native dialect. So that one, the parties could speak English, but their experts they were bringing in could not speak English. And that expert was so crucial to this matter that the parties decided that the Baba must come and state what the partitioning principle they used, on this, that the property and all of that. So in that case, he was crucial to the case. I couldn't just wish him away. And octogenarian that was practically like moving, with walking stick and all. I mean, the respect factor and all of that. So I told him, you are bringing this, Baba. I hope you understand that you can't just be moving him to and fro. They said yes. And he had to use an interpreter. And immediately he came in, it was just like that was a magic one. And everybody said, yes, this is what has been. Even all the factions now agreed. And it was only for that little, part of the mediation process that we had to use an interpreter. I understand the delicacy and how delicate, it is to work with an interpreter, honestly, for something like mediation, because once you append your signature to an agreement and everything, I mean, even though we say you cannot hold it against us and all of that, you know, you can't use it in a court of law, you know, all those clauses we have. But we should know we have a very grave responsibility for any choice you decide to make. There are a lot of cases I said I wouldn't do, because I've already seen it's delicate, very delicate. And I understand that it's not as if it's a life and death matter, that the parties can actually wait to get a mediator that can speak in their language for them. You understand?
Okay.
Or some choose to actually come with their lawyers. That's another beautiful thing. But then the lawyer has to be mediation friendly. Do you understand? Because remember, mediation is party driven. Not some of our colleagues will come in and want to take over the process, and maybe sometimes they're not like adequately representing their party's best interest, you know, but they are so tied to the position.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
It's always, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Though I think you know, there are some certain questions that are neither here nor there. So I think it just depends on the mediator handling. I, for one, will not handle a mediation session that I can't communicate, because I believe communication is the foundation of anything. So I don't, and hard as much as I say I'm a mediator and all of that, I also understand the concept of the law, because lawyers can be a bit mischievous, because then again, it raises so many issues. First of all, is the issue of an illiterate jurat. So the question is that did the parties sign an illiterate jurat? Then second part again is this: in the agreement to mediate. You see, because my concern is not really the intentment of what it is we're trying to achieve, because mediation session is fluid up until when it is reduced into writing. It is when it is reduced into writing and it becomes a legal document that the lawyers can now pounce on any loophole that can come into play. That's when they can now start looking at some certain documents. Yes, there's an agreement to mediate. Now they look at the concept of confidentiality. They look at, there's so many loopholes that can come in from bringing in an interpreter that I would not want to go into. But that's it about it. Okay, Favor, I noticed your hand was up. I'm so sorry. Could you please unmute yourself so that we can take your question, please? Okay, I'm trying to unmute her. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Could you please take your hand was up? Yeah. Hello, Favor. Okay. So we move. And now there's a session we have here, Uduak. I always call it the table breaking. Yeah. I call it the table breaking session, where I just pretend to be a complete conspiracy theorist, or more like a devil's advocate, to just talk about some certain issues that just come to mind. Now what just came to mind? Yeah, what just came to mind now is the concept of I would just want your feedback on it. If you agree, let us know, and if you don't, if you agree, you can please expand the narrative, and if you don't agree, please let us know why. It's the concept of justice in mediation. Now, people believe that the concept of mediation has to do with, especially where justice is concerned, has to do with you doing what is right. But then again, the concept of what is right is relative. And I'll give a pedestrian example. When two kids are fighting over a bar of chocolate, a parent will feel the ideal thing to do is to divide that chocolate into two and give both parties half. But then again, that might not necessarily be the solution to that problem. Because at the end of the day, when you divide that bar of chocolate into two, the fact still remains that you did not ask any of those kids what they want. So I think this is where sometimes the lines get blurred. So the question I'm going to ask you is this: is mediation really justice, or is mediation just a balance of what parties need to, or of what parties want? Yeah, I'll take it again. Is mediation justice, or is it a balance of what parties want, irrespective of whether what both of them agree to is right or wrong?
Okay. Okay, so I think what I hear you say now is you're actually asking a two-in-one question. First of all, is mediation really justice? And then the other flip side, is it like a balance of what the two parties want? I'll start by saying that justice is relative. Do you understand? What is justice to me might not be what is justice to you.
Yep.
So the same goes to the parties at the mediation table. Remember, everybody has their wants, their interests, their positions, their needs. Do you understand? And if they've adequately prepared for mediation, they should have come into mediation with, let's call it their WATNA. Okay, let me not use mediation terms. Their best alternative to a mediated agreement. And do you understand? So for me, what a creative mediation is supposed to do, you're supposed to strike like a balance. And what you might think is a balance to you, for the other party, it could be, like maybe on their scale of what they came in willing to negotiate with. Someone would have come in with, I want to negotiate on an issue by issue basis. Some will just come in with their strategy, I want a one pack kind of fit all. So if you're creative, everybody can actually get what they want. But it might not necessarily be justice. That's why mediation is flexible. Do you understand? Because like I said, what is justice to you might not be what is justice to me. In fact, I've said so many times as a mediator, I'm saying in my mind, now wow. I feel, why is this thing so important to the person? But I have to remind myself that I'm not the one in their shoes. Do you understand? They know why they are holding so much, why that is so much of a need to them. My own is just to help them see how maybe their position is not serving their interest and their needs. So if I can get to decipher and discover exactly what their needs are, and I help them to move towards or closer, or maybe meet all of their needs, as far as those people are concerned, they've gotten it. They're satisfied. So the same thing with this other group. Yeah, so it's relative, honestly, Fola. It's never in black and white, I must tell you. And I think that's the beauty of mediation too.
No, okay. Mr. Sugar, right? She wrote something in the comment section. She says mediation is not justice. Mediation is dispute resolution in a manner that is acceptable to both parties. Now, what are your thoughts on that? Because there's a question that's going to come into play, and it's almost like a true question. But I want to hear what you have to say on this comment.
Okay. Of course, mediation is not justice. That's just exactly what I've said. Because justice means a lot of things to different people. So mediation is just that I'm okay with this. I can walk away with this decision, and I'm happy with it.
Oh, okay. So if mediation is not,
it's not justice. Yeah, so like, it could be justice to the person, a party, but it might not be justice to the other party. It could mean that agreement could mean a lot of things to so many people, depending on, like I said, if it has served your interests or your needs.
So if we say mediation is not justice, and because this story I remember this story from my book of Bible stories about this king that was torn between, there were two women fighting over the custody of a child. Okay. Now one wanted, was it King Solomon? Yeah. Was it? Was King Solomon? Now let's assume both parties agreed to the division of that baby so that they can go home with half and half. That is mediation now. So what within the framework of that, what are we going to call that? Yeah, both parties have accepted, because now if you are saying mediation is not justice, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to lay a premise for this. If you are saying mediation is not justice, but that it is whatever both parties agree to, and whatever it is they agree to, if it goes against the principle of a lot of other things, what are we then saying? Because I'm just trying to struggle with that concept of that thin line between a perception of what justice is and the perception of what is right or wrong. A perception of equality. Can I
just come in there? Yes. I think before Uduak answers, I think what King Solomon did that day was more of reality testing.
It was arbitration, true and true, because he took that decision upon himself.
You know why? No, I don't know. I don't know. I think it was more of reality testing, because when he said divide the child into two, the real mother would rather the child be alive. So for me, it was reality testing. Like, let's check which way the pendulum is going to swing. I just wanted to put that out there. Uduak, go ahead.
Yeah, I love your reasoning, Abby. Actually, I could say that it was reality testing, and I could equally say that the king knew what result was going to what he has said. He knew what he was checking for by posing that question to the mothers. And of course, we have what is, fundamental principles that cannot be derogated from. Let me fall back a little bit again on my arbitration and all of that. You have even in mediation, you have the peremptory norms that cannot be derogated from. You understand? So some of these ones, we know it is barbaric, it's a no-no, it cannot be negotiated. You get, maybe like tending to take away people's lives and all of that, which is what the king was trying to use to check who was the true mother, the identity of the true mother in that scenario. I believe that worst case scenario, what maybe that King Solomon would have done, since he was that wise, if for any reason the two women had said, oh yeah, divide this baby and let's take the parts and go, I'm sure the king would have said, rather let this child grow in my in my palace. And when the child is grown, the child will now choose who the mother is supposed to be. You remember, as a mediator, you could be creative. So let's assume he had the mind of a mediator. I'm sure he would have looked for other creative means to resolve that issue. So I think that's actually my take, Fola.
No, I hear you, but it's just that, you see, for me, if we decide to go down that lane, I feel it's just going to it's going to bring up more questions than answers, because if we are not able to really understand, okay, what it is we are trying to achieve with mediation, we say, okay, fine, mediation is an amicable resolution of disputes between parties, provided parties agree. Now, so that means that for as long as there's an agreement between parties, whether right or wrong, whether moral or immoral, whether there is a sense of justice or not, then for me, this is my own personal opinion. I just ask myself this question. Then, so what then are we talking about? What what are we really then trying to achieve with the whole concept of mediation when the lines cannot be drawn? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud, Abby. I'm just thinking out loud. What really is the true intendment of mediation? Really, are we now saying, based on this, that what we are really trying to achieve with mediation is for parties to agree that once there's an amicable resolution of whatever issue that is in dispute, then our job is done? Is that what we are saying? Is that really what the concept of that mediation is supposed to really be all about? I don't know. I'm just a bit conflicted.
There's a comment by Favor. It says it's shifting grounds. That is let me read it again. Mediation is shifting grounds and letting go of some things. From Favor Usochukwu.
Yes. But the point is that the ground that is being but the ground that is being shifted now, you understand, yeah? If we look at the concept of maybe litigation and the concept of even arbitration, where parties, they look at the issues in contention, then maybe the judge now or the arbitrator now, on the merit of some certain issues, comes to a particular decision. You understand? We understand that. But the only issue with that is that he has taken that decision without trying to balance. There's a victor vanquished. But on the flip side, with mediation, we are saying now that irrespective of whatever we think it is, whether we think it's wrong, whether we think it's right, or whatever, once both parties have agreed to something, then that is it. So the point is, at what point can we? Yes. So at what point then do we now draw that line between what is right and what is wrong?
I see where you're coming from. I see where you're coming from, Fola.
Yeah, what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad.
Well,
okay, actually in dispute resolution, actually, I mentioned there are universal basic principles that cannot be derogated from. Recall, I mentioned the peremptory norms of international law, even though, of course, it applies to ADR also. We call them jus cogens, as in JUSCOGENS. So those are fundamental principles that are universal and basic. So again, I think that might address your concern that no matter the climate, no matter the cultural setting, life is sacrosanct. Do you understand? The right to life. You get what I'm trying to say? So, of course, any mediated settlement that portends or attempts to take away that sanctity of life, certainly it will be going against those universal basic principles. And wherever you take it to for enforcement, do you understand? Okay, yeah, it will fall apart, no matter if they have agreed. Even though there was a bit of a funny experience I've had before, it wasn't directly me. It was actually, we were discussing with a fellow mediator colleague. Yeah, well, it had to do a little bit with human trafficking. Basically, that was what it was. I know in some societies or in some cultures, they actually sell off their daughters to go into human trafficking. You get what I'm trying to say? I don't want to say so much because, some people know, in some places they understand that it is okay, in quotes. You get. So one mother had agreed. It was so funny. It sounded like one of those stories in the Bible too. Okay, you send off your daughter first. When she goes, she brings in the proceeds. We get the proceeds. We help ourselves to keep the two families together. And when that one is settled, you will now send off your own daughter. Do you understand? The second daughter. And when it was time for this other woman to now send out her own daughter into this cartel that do the human trafficking thing, I know they can send all these young girls to do all manner of things. She did not send, though. She didn't send her own daughter. And guess what? She brought the matter to me. It was so funny. Honestly, there are some things as mediators, you sit down. I was asking my colleague, so number one, how could you even sit on that kind of matter? She said, well, she had to stifle some things to even sit down to listen to the two women. I don't know how that matter went, but honestly, I don't know how I would have been able to sit over that kind of a mediation, session. You get what I'm trying to say? It might not be so close, but this was a real life issue. So I was wondering, how could these women have gotten to that state? The way it was normalized in their consciousness that it is okay to trade off their daughters into, such things. And then because the other one derogated, you want to come and enforce an agreement. Let's assume, maybe they had a consensus. Let's use a legal term now, Abby just used. She wanted to come and enforce it. How could she enforce that? And she came to mediation. I wonder if I don't know how it went. I didn't want to follow up because I was too appalled by the whole thing. I didn't want to follow through with how that matter went. But I'm honestly just trying to say that these things happen. Sometimes you find yourself, some of the things you are asked to sit in as a mediator goes against some of your personal convictions. I equally even had one, though it was just an experience we had. We went to the International Criminal Court in The Hague. And if you are aware of some of this, Rwanda, I think it was the Rwandan matter or the Ugandan one, there was a lot of genocide and all of this. So I think one of the rebel leaders was there. And I was there with other female African women mediators. And I could see the pain in the eyes of some of these ladies that the man, that actually experienced the torture and the trauma. But when I also listened to the story of the man, how he was a child, I think it was a child soldier and everything and all of that. So I was wondering how the judges will handle that matter. I think at the end of the day, we didn't sit through all the sessions, but after some time, we heard that he was actually found guilty. So sometimes you down as a mediator and some of the things you hear tears at your heart and even goes against your moral convictions. And at times you will find out that some of them you can't just contain it. At any point you can always say, you know what, I don't want to deal anymore. I'm sorry. somebody else can come and see, because I mean, like that one I just talked about, human trafficking thing, I don't know how I would have sat in that matter till the end. I can't deal with that because it's despicable if you ask me for mothers to agree to such.
Okay, thank you so much, Udi. So how would you say that as a mediator, you can deliver quality services? How would you, what advice would you give to people who are mediators, to people who are not mediators, on how to deliver quality services as a mediator?
Okay. I think number one, it's so crucial for you to constantly build on your expertise as a mediator, knowing that every matter that comes to you presents different scenarios that if you've not prepared yourself adequately for, you might not be able to, help the parties to, come to an amicable resolution of whatsoever their dispute must have been. So number one, train. You can never take it away. You train every day. I'm still training myself. I'm still going for a second master's program. You're still in the field of mediation, peace, and all of that. You train, you build on your capacity, and then you have a vibrant network, because you can never know it all. You can never know it all. Sometimes you just have to pick the brains of your fellow mediators and, okay, what do you think? Of course, without going against the confidentiality principle, which we all know. But you pick brains to see how you could gain from their expertise, from their experience you use to handle the cases for you. And the vibrant network, you'll never be wanting when it comes to getting best practices and all of that. And of course, I mean, you also learn to narrow down your expertise, because mediation is wide. You can't just claim to be a jack of all trades. In as much as you can actually do everything, you also need to pick the area that you want to specialize in, the area you want to be known as an authority. Yeah, that is it for me.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I totally agree with you. Training, and networking. So as we are about to round up for today, thank you so much for joining us. We've had a very enlightening session. What advice would you give to anyone who's looking to take up a career? Actually, I have one other question, but looking to take up a career in mediation?
Okay. Well, for me, the advice I would give is this: be sure that you really have an interest in that area. Do you understand? And you are ready to be an avid reader and learner. That's one thing. And I also love people to know that mediation is not just limited to, civil mediation, commercial mediation. We also have other aspects of mediation, like the peace, security, field or space you can go into. And especially I want to talk to women too, because you see, everybody is beginning to realize, in as much as we've been having a lot of pushback in terms of gender and all of that. But then with the UN resolution 1325 that talks about allowing women to play more of an active role in the peace and security space.
Hello?
In the women the platform. And give women the platform to exhibit and to be able to bring in actively meaningful contribution into the building the peace and security architecture of their various countries, be it at the state level, at the local level, at the international level, regional level. There's a lot of opportunities. So, I mean, we will just be doing yourself a disservice if you are just there folding your hands and say, okay, I think I'll just only commercial or civil. Why don't you just also explore the aspects if you are keen? So I would say this is the time. This is just the time to get into that space, because there's a lot of opportunities here. That's what I would say, Abby.
Okay, great. Thank you so very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to everyone who's joined.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much.
6:25.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Uduak.
You're welcome, Fola.
Yeah, it's
Welcome,
been an
Fola.
interesting and insightful session. But you see, the beauty about it for me is that you have opened up a box that we cannot close in another 3 sessions. So that's why I'm just smiling now, and I'm just jotting. And because you see, this concept of justice or no justice within the circle of mediation. Thankfully, we'll be having Mrs. Fumi Roberts next week, Saturday, and
Yeah.
upper Saturday. Yeah, and I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag or the bag out of the cat. We will also have.
No,
We'll be
let's leave the
having.
cat in the bag. Let's leave the cat in
Yes,
the
yes, we're
bag.
going to have. Yeah, we're going to be having a judge on the hot seat. So no better person to talk about the concept or otherwise of justice than a judge. Because for me, and this is where I just struggle with of the concept of justice or not justice. We seem to forget that we are first of all human. We know what is right and what is wrong. So I know it is not our case. I know we can rationalize a lot of things and say that well, it's what both parties want and all of that. But then again, that is why we are human. If at the end of the day, the only part I just struggle with, and I don't know whether it is ethical or not, is maybe in a session where a party is demanding 1 million and the other party is saying it's going to pay 100,000, and the other party agrees to paying 100,000. So do we now say that because both of them have agreed, you understand that is a good session? So you see, for me, I'm neither here nor there. I'm a bit conflicted, and so but I know when things like this come up, we'll continue to ask every mediator we put on the hot seat until at least we find some sort of closure of some sort to all of this. So thank you for opening more boxes, because we'll be running out of a lot of boxes to close. And we hope that when we have you again, you would honor our invitation. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. And next week, Saturday,
You're welcome.
yeah, we'll be having Mrs. Fumi Roberts, yeah, on our hot seat. I can promise it's going to be very explosive and interesting as always.
Yes, you don't want to miss that.
No, you don't want
Yeah.
to miss that. Trust me, because the
Nope,
beauty about what we
you don't
do
want to
is
miss it.
that we just ask contemporary issues surrounding mediation. It's unscripted, it is unfiltered. We ask at the speed of light and at the speed of inspiration. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Uduak, thank you so much. Yes,
Thank you, Fola. Thank you, Abby. Thank
yeah,
you, Alfie. I can see you and all the people that turned in. God
yes,
bless you. I've enjoyed myself today.
thank you so much. And for those that tuned in a bit late, we're on YouTube at Fortify Mediation Academy to watch the recording, and also to Mr. Chairman, sir, Mr. Yomi Okunu. Thank you, and to every other person. Have a lovely weekend. And we'll
Thank
see
you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you, Okechukwu.
Thank
Thank you,
you
Althea.
and
Thank you
bye.
so much, everyone.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Fumi.
see you all next week. Next week is going to be explosive.
Saturday, 5 p.m.
Yeah, Saturday, 5
You
p.m.
don't want to
prime
miss next
time.
week, Saturday.
You don't